Well, welcome to Show Me the Money Rugby League TV. Once again, you're in the good company of myself, Mick the Game Caller Gledhill, and the King, Mr. Craig, Show Me the Money Harrison. This is a very, very special show. We are going to review what has happened in the Challenge Cup third round, which of course started on Friday with a trio of games and concluded yesterday with that shock result. Championship side, the Bradford Bulls, dispatching and defeating Super League side Castleford Tigers at Odsal Stadium. A lot of people, and I'll start with this, Craig, a lot of people have put the spotlight, put the microscope under the Challenge Cup and the change and how the Super League sides have been seeded. And yes, I will openly admit this, prior to this weekend's games, I was looking at West Warriors against Leeds, expected blowout. I was looking at York Acorn against Hull FC, an expected blowout. No real shock or surprise to see those games, blowing out with big scores against the community clubs. But when I look and I take stock at everything that's happened this weekend, and you look at Whitehaven against Warrington, nearly 4,000 fans at the recreation ground, their biggest crowd for 20 years. A record crowd on Friday night, the game that I was at on Friday at the LNER, York against Ilkeston Rovers. A record attendance for York. Midland Hurricanes yesterday against Salford. A record attendance for Mark Dunning and the Midland Hurricanes against Salford. I've seen far more, this is how I feel. I feel there's far more positivity coming out of this weekend than when I went in. And probably the biggest story from this weekend, I know we'll talk about Castleford, Bradford and all the other games shortly, but West Hull on Saturday, absolutely surreal scenes. They'd sold 2,000 tickets before kick-off. I don't know where all the fans come from. Spoke to the RFL last night. They said the crowd was over 5,000. So what they're saying is 3,000 fans, over 3,000 fans on the day of the game have turned up at Craven Park where West Hull were playing. And because the crowd, Craig, was that big, they've actually had to open the gates and let a large amount of that 5,000 plus crowd in for free. And West Hull have put an appeal out because they couldn't charge everybody the £10. So anybody watching this, head to West Hull's Facebook page, Twitter page. They've got the bank details on there. And what they're saying is, if you were one of the thousands who've got in for free, and you want to, contribute to Community Rugby League in Hull, there's the bank account number and the sort code. And they're asking for people to be honest and pay the £10. But, when you look at those positive stories, and there's been quite a few negative articles, and I myself have accused the RFL of being asleep at the wheel in allowing community clubs to go up against Super League opposition. But yes, West Warriors against Leeds blowout, York Acorn Hull FC blowout, but in the second half, Craig, of that West Hull St Helens game, they restricted St Helens to just 2 tries and 10 points. And let me tell you, from the action that I've seen, you've got pretty much 80% of Craven Park, mixture of Hull FC and Hull KR supporters in that crowd, boosting it up, and they're all cheering West Hull, the community club. It was good to see, great to see, and I feel there is going to be changes. The RFL have already said the Super League sides are going to come in after the Super League season started, which probably makes what Bradford achieved yesterday at Odsal even more difficult, or for any of those championship sides to get past Super League opposition even difficult. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and we are going to go through the games. But what's your thoughts, Craig, on the third round, just quickly?
We mentioned, as long as we didn't get any injuries, I'm hearing we haven't had any bad mismatches.
No.
That's all I was bothered about. My duty of care was simply to the players that I thought, if you've got a 20-stone prop playing Super League, and I was definitely scared about that. If that's been okay and we haven't heard anything, unbelievable. How can that be bad news? Record crowds everywhere. If you get I got the figures wrong actually last week, so apologies. But I think if you get 3,000 people or 2,500, you're probably looking at a 15 grand payday, which is for some clubs is a lifeline for the rest of the year. So massive thanks to IMG, massive thanks to the Rugby Football League. It's been a massive success, and what we heard, and I'm on watching on TV, I've got radio on, I've got 3 ways everywhere. The first half, most of the teams competed. It's when the stamina and the fitness levels and all that kicked in, then it became a landslide. But there was fantastic stories. The Midlands won at half time. It gone up. I think they were drawing at half time.
10 points apiece, yeah.
I'd be saying, "Oh my God!" And then I spoke to Callum by text last night, McClelland, and he said, "Wheels come off second half, just fitness and the way they played, and they just flicked it and they went into this other gear." And that seemed to happen at Sheffield, at most of the others, where they could compete for so long. And then, obviously, the Super League's fitness levels went up. But weirdly, I spoke to Goole Vikings CEO, James.
Well, I was at that game on Saturday.
He was at the game, and he was so disappointed. I thought, oh, you might have got a good payday, which hopefully they did, touch wood. But he was just like, I don't know whether they got, after the London, they thought they could have competed at least till 30 minutes in or that. And then when the score come through, and he was absolutely dejected, as though to say, we've got some real, after London, you'd have thought top 4. I still do. You probably got them somewhere else now. But I think that's what it's done to a lot of teams, Mick. Looking down the list here, I think a lot of teams will get where they are. You look at Midlands, they're going to compete. They're competing against Salford for 45. Oldham beat Barrett, which is not really a shock because everyone had had it, but they've actually put Barrett at sword quite easily.
Quite a good result for
I think White, even if you look at that, 40 points on the aggregate, not a bad result. If we start off with York, now, we all watched it. A shout out to the sportsmen on YouTube and again the RFL and IMG. Thank you. Give us all a chance to watch it. I don't know what views they got. I'd be interested to see what they got on the sportsman. Sam maybe can find that out for Friday, whether we can find that out.
Well, we normally, people like myself who work in the media, we get a media release, and that'll probably come later on today or Tuesday, and it'll have the BBC figures and it'll have the streaming numbers. So, I was at the ground in York on Friday, and they actually opened all 4 stands because of demand. Yes, one of the stands might have only had 30, 40 people in, but it was good to see 3 of the stands, a good 60, 70% full. Now, they didn't announce a crowd. All they said is that it was over 4,200, which was York against Bradford at Bootham Crescent in 2018. A game that we covered on Proper Sports, if you remember, on the live stream. So that is a massive positive, and credit to Hulkingston Rovers. Credit to Willie Peters. He went 1-17. He sent his strongest team to York. The Hull KR fans bought into that. It wasn't like Hull FC against York Acorn, where Cartwright's basically, put loads of youngsters and academy and fringe reserve players in. Credit where credit's due to the Super League coaches, Sam Burgess at Warrington, going with those full strength teams. And, I know we're going to get onto the York Hull KR game, Craig, but it was great. It was great to see. It was refreshing to see. And it shows, and hopefully this has shown a lot of fans and people watching this, that there is a lot of life, there is a lot of love for Rugby League outside of the Super League, because, of course, the Super League season starts this weekend. So those clubs like Whitehaven, like York, like Midland Hurricanes, they're going to slowly, and it shouldn't happen, but it does, they are going to fall under the microscope because the Super League season
I'm just looking here, why would York not give the attendance? Is that?
There's a number of clubs like that. Honestly, don't get me started. Hulkingston Rovers do it in Super League. There's a number of clubs, Craig. Batley in the Championship, they're another one. They don't give the crowds.
Is that for tax reasons?
No, I don't know why it is. It's honestly, it's mundane. It's really, really mundane. There's no scandal there. I ask the RFL all the time for crowds. So the RFL will know the actual crowd for York v Hull KR. So, again, that will probably come through on this week's media release.
Right. Well,
but we do know it's over 4,200.
So,
which was the Bradford York crowd.
It gives York a chance, Mick, to say to the investors at York, I'm sure Clint's got a few, what it'll be like if they become a Super League club. I've had it off somebody this morning. Very interesting how York look if they played a Super League club. But they played a Super League club who bring a lot of fans, who have got a good support base. So if they got a crowd of 4-2, that's about where they'll be at, if we be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe Leeds Rhinos come in and be, because of the local derby and a few others. But Hull KR is close to York. It's right up there. So that's where Clint will be saying to his investors, I'm sure, listen, if we get Super League, I think we can get 4,500, 5,000 at the best. They'll obviously have better players if they went to Super League, so there'll be more people wanting to come and watch. It's a nice appetizer, but they competed for about 30 minutes. I thought they missed a couple of tries where I thought they should have scored. I think they went down short side on one, and then I think they got one on the left edge, and the kid just stepped in. I didn't think it passed. I actually got worried after about 25 minutes. Not worried because I'm not worried that Hull KR are not going to win or York, but I actually thought, wow, this is a proper game. This is proper competitive. There were a couple of McShane grabbed Mickey McCorrack. They had a bit of a tussle, didn't they? And then I thought it's all going to kick off. What you dream about in Challenge Cup games, a bit of the old biff and everything's going off. And then once they execute, and I please don't think I'm being biased, but when Jez Litton come on, it was game over. The last thing they needed, Joe Brown's talked to me this morning saying the last thing they needed at that time were looking up and seeing Jez Litton getting warmed up. And he just went bang, 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 bang. It were all the rucks speeded up. Mikey Lewis were at high levels as normal. Mikey, one thing I have to laugh about Mikey, he's playing against the young lad who was from KR, the halfback.
Yeah.
Let me think of his name. He kicked, God, we can't keep getting this wrong. Liam Harris. And Mike is as competitive playing against Liam Harris.
It was Harrison Hingano, yeah.
He's as competitive playing against him because he's from where Mike is from than he is George Williams. If you ever want to know what makes a top player, Mick, that's it. When you absolutely, Joe was saying he's burbling him, he's got him in headlock, he's giving him some. He's up for that York game like he's playing in a cup final. That's what makes the best players different. I agree with you. Very high respect for York. Willie Peters brought the best team he could possibly bring. That's their starting lineup this week.
But like you say, Craig, that second half, Nia levels when you're seeing Hargreaves, you're seeing Mikey Lewis, and look. My assessment is, I feel York will be disappointed. I don't know what Joe Brown's saying. I think there was a lot of. I think they are, but not. I don't think they should be. No, I know. I think the scoreline, when you look at it and you analyse that game, it has blown out. It is a little bit unfair on York. But what I'm saying is, second half, when, like you say, Litton's on, fatigue, that part-time versus full-time factor kicks in, which is massive in rugby league. The penalties, the set restarts, the errors that York came up with, that played into Hull KR's.
I'm more, but how I watch a game like that.
By the way, I've still got York top 6 championship.
I watched a game like that, and I want to know how many championship players I think can play above. That's what I do. That's my exciting bit. I thought Will Dagger proved at times why he was a Super League player and could still be. We've argued about Joe Brown for 5 years. I certainly think Joe could do a great job in Super League. I thought Connor Fitzsimmons had his best game for a long time. Agano definitely could play. There were bits where
Jesse D as well.
Jesse D.
Jesse D.
He had the right game, by the way. A good shout, Mick.
Yeah, really impressed with Jesse D's performance.
You look at that and you say probably 4 or 5 probably could and probably have done themselves some good. Willie Peters might also think, and I don't think he will with their squad, but he might think 1 or 2 of theirs. I'm not going to mention. I don't want into that one, but there's a couple of theirs that I thought they didn't look any different. There were 2 or 3 I looked at and they paid big money for, and I'm thinking, wow, they should be bang bang bang. And they want, and you're thinking, God, at that level they should. Whereas some people, obviously, I'd say like Mike and Jez.
But let's not forget, and we'll talk about Halifax and Catalans. But I thought, because it's really early doors, this is why they're on about moving these games a little bit later on in the year, so that you've had the pre-season, you've had a couple of rounds of Super League. A lot of these Super League sides in the Challenge Cup, Craig, some of them have only had 1 pre-season game. if that makes sense. So they are starting from a very cold start.
They have 95 things in their favour. So one.
No, I agree.
Let's get Champ one bit of favour. You know,
no, I'm not putting the boot in on Championship and League One. I'm just saying, from looking at where certainly some of the Super League sides, some are obviously ahead of others, but from what I've seen this weekend, from the games that I've seen in the Challenge Cup, obviously a lot of them are starting from a very cold start.
Listen, I suppose most Super League teams, if they come out of that, there's no injuries. That's the first thing Willie Peters would have gone. Is there any injuries? Yeah. No. If there's no injuries, they've had a great round. They've played well. They've executed some plays. It's defensively. If you ever talk about the coach after a game, it sounds a bit theory boring. They'll say, I like what we did defensively. They kept York to 2. So York will be disappointed about not scoring. That's got to be devastating for a Championship club to play 80 minutes and not scoring at a Super League club. Yes, that is a massive negative. Willie Peters might say that's because of our good defence. We pride ourselves on it. So there's a bit of both in there. Moving on, I think the crowd were fantastic. Great fixture. I love that the sportsmen have got us to watch it. Joe text or whoever did saying, look, you're going to watch it on Sportsman. I thought overall, I'd give that fixture 9 out of 10. I loved everything about that fixture, including the fans, including the atmosphere, including everything that were there. I loved it. If I could do better, I think York should have scored a couple, and that's what they've been.
Well, if we're going to grade the fixtures that we are going to put under the microscope, I think I'm giving that a 7 out of 10, Craig. It reminded me very much of an England versus Australia game where there's that effort and intensity early doors, and then, as always, what seems to happen, hopefully it doesn't happen with the Ashes, Australia, well-oiled machine, they find the gears and they literally cut and let rip. And we've all been there with England and Great Britain against Australia. I know that might be a poor analogy, but, like I say, I think York, they will be disappointed they've not scored. They'll be disappointed with the errors, they'll be disappointed with the penalties. But like you say, Craig, ultimately, it put the club under the spotlight, and if the rumours are true, Clint's looking to sell, Clint's looking to get investment, then what a great advertisement to say, this is what we can get if 100%. We make it to Super League. We're now joined by Joe Me the Money, Mr. Joe Me the Money Harrison. So we've just done York against Hulkinson Rovers. We'll do a little bit on Wakefield and Goole. That was the game that I was covering on Saturday. Craig, you've already said James Clark, not happy with Goole's performance. Look, that was a very, very, very strong. And again, we've mentioned Willie Peters sending the 1-17 to the LNER Stadium. Darryl Powell, he went bang, bang, bang as well. You talk about Tom Johnston on his second debut, Mike McMeekan, Jake Truman, Matty Staunton, a lot of players, Oliver Russell, Matty Russell, I think there was about 9 players on debut for Wakefield, and that was pretty much what they're going to send to Headingley to face Leeds this weekend. It was full strength as full strength can be. So credit to Darryl Powell and Wakefield. My own honest thoughts on the game were, and I'm sure if you buy Rugby League Express, you'll see the match report that I've written from that game. The show. By the way, if Lorraine's watching, instead of making me go to the shops and pay £2, whatever it is that I've just been charged, I'd like a free one. I'm joking, but no. Joking aside, look, Wakefield showed no mercy, Craig. It was men against boys. Goole did not help themselves whatsoever. I've got to say it as it is. They had a 12-2 penalty count against them. After about 10 minutes, when they were only trailing 6-0, you've got Thomas Mings going in late on Matty Russell. You've got Brett Ferris arguing with referee Cameron Worsley. I'm sorry if Scott Taylor's watching this or James Clark. What I'm about to say is uncomfortable, but they really did resemble what a lot of people at championship level would call a very nitty-gritty, grubby, workman-like side where the writing's on the wall, so they resort to those sort of tactics to try and to stop the momentum that Wakefield had. Unfortunately, when you're going to concede 12 penalties and how I lost count of the set restarts,
well, and he got yellow carded as well,
and you're losing plays to the sin bin. Yeah. The writing was on the wall. Even with Goole having 13 players out on the field, they struggled against Wakefield. But look, take nothing away from Goole. Very hard to give a very thorough, honest kind of appraisal, so to speak, when you're coming up against the Wakefield side.
They had their big game anyway, didn't they? Their big game was against London. They pulled off a miraculous win. There was a story of the Challenge Cup week one, whatever week it was.
And their focus now is against North Wales Crusaders in the 1895 Cup, because, they win that, they've got a big ticket game in round one. So the focus, obviously, on Wakefield. Craig, I've got to be brutally honest, we were there for Luke Gale's testimonial. I am really, really liking what I am seeing from that spine of Max Jowett, Max Jowett, Mason Leno and Jake Truman. Matty Staunton, 2 tries, not sure how many metres he made, but he delivered the X factor at Bellevue. On Saturday, I give him the man of the match, and when I spoke to Darryl Powell after the game, he agreed with that assessment. The momentum, the tackling, the impact, the power. I mean, you could have picked a number of players for that man of the match, but I don't know what Matty Staunton's done in pre-season. I don't know if you can shed any insight into that, Craig, but he looks like the player I thought he would be all them years ago coming through the Bradford Bulls Academy. And if he continues this, the NRL will come calling for Matty Staunton. That is my big bold prediction.
Well, it's easy, Mick, this one. 3 key things. One, he's been at a club at OKR where he's learnt a lot of stuff he didn't learn at Bradford, which is D'ing up, the fitness levels, how to be a professional at the top level. Willie Peters is so what he learnt at KR, and people must know this. Well, KR allowed me a chance to talk to other clubs, and then about a month later they come back in and said, look, we realise we might want to keep Stozza. So they were a bit of they thought the world at Stozza. And then the other key factor is if you put Darryl Powell's coaching, the way they playing him at back row, which we all love him. I never thought he was a prop, I never thought he was 13, I always thought he was a back rower. And then the key indicator for me is he's happy. I think he will push for England. I think if he gets his, he'll push for everything he deserves. But the big key factor is Truey. It's got to be. Yes. You were at West Bowling when I first got him. He was they were the best smash and grab I'd seen. Went to watch him play. We got the videos. Truey coming onto the line. Truey letting his hands go. Stoz is one of the best. He's probably wasted himself for 2.5 years. Not wasted, but he's been a different player to that line running what he was as a young kid. What you heard about Bradford, he was fantastic.
And that's what I saw on Saturday. Yeah. He made 30 metres for one of his tries. Again, I can't remember. I think it was Jamie Shaw. It went 30 metres from a restart down the middle. Shaw just went higher. Another penalty conceded because they couldn't stop him.
He hit a tight line at Wakey, if you remember. Truey went in and he hit this tight line and he used him as a dummy to go round back. Listen, they'd known each other since they were kids. There couldn't be a better way. And he's happy. I think he's happy. Good on. Listen, Goole were devastated. I know Tag will be. He's got very high standards and Tag won't allow that. Neither will James. They've got £10,000 or £15,000 into the recruiting, into the club, which they're well needed. You'll see where they are this week when they play West. They're saying they're playing Wales. That'd be a better indicator. 2 weeks on trot, probably too much for them at this stage. To play London and give it a dig, and that week after play Wakey, it's probably too much. They're only just set up as a club. Yeah. They haven't got a family. That were probably too much too far. I won't be too disappointed at all. I'd take it on chin and say, listen, Wakey could be a top 6 club here this year. You should get your heads up. And two games like that's impossible for a club like Goole.
Yeah, so it's not. And for those people that are probably watching this asking, why was that game at Wakefield? I didn't know this, but obviously I spoke to Scott Taylor and he said they've knocked the main stand down. They don't have a main stand. So obviously it is all getting redeveloped, which were for health and safety reasons. And I suspect there were a little bit of this, Goole knowing play it at Bellevue, get 2,000 in, which they got.
I think they do, but I also think it'd be brilliant for Goole to bring them to Goole because the Goole people
100%, Super League team Wakefield coming.
Yeah, I were there for years and the fans will come in.
Tom Johnston, Mike McMeekan, England X Factor. But what was interesting about that game was when Thomas Mings took Matty Russell off and he went off the field for a HIA, Lachlan Walmsley comes on. And we saw Lachlan Walmsley against Castleford in that pre-season game. He scored 2 tries in as many minutes, and then Matty Russell passes the HIA. So, Lachlan, here you go. You've done 10 minutes, 2 tries. It was a good job done for Lachlan Walmsley. But I'm really, really liking Wakefield. And by the way, people watching this, we have got a separate Super League preview Obviously, the season starts this weekend, and I'm really looking forward to that game on Saturday. That's the game that I am going to on Saturday, Leeds against Wakefield at Headingley, but we'll talk more about that in the Super League preview. But yeah, that game, Craig, it was absolutely cold, colder than it was at Odsall yesterday. And by the way, I know there's a lot of people watching live and you're waiting for that Bradford-Castleford fallout, which is coming. But despite it being absolutely freezing cold, I actually probably enjoyed that game more than the Hull KR York game, because it was just
more Bradford players in it.
Not to do with Bradford players or former Bradford players. I actually enjoyed the way Wakefield were playing, and I can see what Darryl Powell's doing. And I know it is newbies League One Goole, and I know against Leeds it is going to be totally 110% different. But I'm liking what I'm seeing at Wakefield.
I think the game I'd love to speak about before the obvious one is I watched Halifax v Catalans last night, Mick. Again on the Sportsman. Watched the full game. You watched a bit, didn't you? What did you think?
Again, as I said to Craig, I think Catalans, they've not had a pre-season as such. They had that one trial game against Toulouse. They did look undercut. They looked really undercut, but I want to take nothing whatsoever away from Halifax. Wow, Kyle Eastman has got Halifax playing. I know I had a few Liam Finn loyalists attack me on social media, and I stand by my convictions, I stand by my observations. I think the players are enjoying it. They are playing for the coach, they are playing for the club. A lot more under Kyle Eastman than I ever saw under Liam Finn, and I think the Halifax fans would agree with me. But what an effort, what a monumental effort in that first half to go in at 0-0. When you think about the players, the money, I dread to think what the salary cap was. I suspect the salary cap was probably 1.4 versus 300k max, potentially. So
1.4 for what? With double that,
Catalans.
2.8.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Just on the team.
I'm on the teams, Craig. We're not talking the squads. We're talking the players on the field. I've put on social media, it was well over $1 million.
Yeah.
And for Halifax, despite
for the players on the pitch.
For the players on the pitch.
Is the half-back plays on half?
He's not. He didn't play.
No,
oh, sorry.
That's what I'm saying, Craig. Sorry. I reckon.
Because I think he's on 4. That'd be 354.
Look, I'm not talking about squads. I'm talking about players on the field. You know where I'm coming from, don't you? And I think that was an absolutely phenomenal effort.
It was. I watched the game. The Halifax, like I said, the effort areas.
Brandon Douglas. My word.
Dougie was
I don't
awesome.
Want to tip him too much.
Defensively, to be fair to the old legs of Ben Crooks, he had a right dig. A lot of them did. Obviously, James Salter saw Halifax nearly legend. They all had a proper dig. Jack Hanson's try-saving tackle versus Nick Kotrick to keep the 0-0. There was some with the effort areas, wasn't it, for Halifax? I thought. The one thing I would say watching the game is Catalans dominated a good 76 minutes of the game. A few big moments. Jack Hanson, a few of them broke from Woodburn Hall, broke through the line once or twice, and they had some exciting key seconds.
What a tackle by Sam Tompkins on Woodburn Hall
save that one. And then, so I'd say effort areas. Kyle will be very, very happy with that. There was no major negatives. Like I said, bit of overplaying, but I think they were just that excited to have them little moments. They overplayed once or twice to maybe miss out some key things. But I think other than that, outstanding effort, outstanding performance. On Catalans, that the reason I want to bring up is because Catalans, obviously I saw on Twitter from the result, everyone was saying, Catalan, yeah, typical Catalan, they've spent old money now, they've done this. I'd say as much as a 0-0 performance going into the half-time as you can, I think they look pretty good. To say it was 0-0, I think if you take out the scoreline, they did well. They just made a lot of silly errors that looked like a lot of French and Australians coming over going, didn't fancy this cold. Not didn't fancy, but wasn't used to, this cold, the weather, the travel. It's a new experience for... I think it were about half the team at this point now that they've brought in. They've brought in a lot of new players. Some old heads were there, but I'd say you could see the shape, you could see the excuse, and Tavita Pengai Jr. was taking about 4 men with him, as he should do with his size and his reputation, taking about 3 or 4 men with him every time he carried. The one who I'm excited about, and I put in the group chat last night, and I don't know... Obviously, Nick Kotrick, massive name, big. I think he had some cats for Australia. He's a massive name. They've brought him over. He's obviously getting a little bit older now, but he looked outstanding. And I'm going to be excited if that converts to Super League, because obviously the players are faster. And I think the one thing he didn't do was have that cutting edge speed to where when he broke the line, he didn't get the tries. Obviously, Hansen tackled him fantastically, but there were a couple of moments that you'd love to see, like a giant Bevan, it'd be gone. It'd just go, boom, Wardle. So he didn't have quite, but was his footwork, execution, passing, offload, he had everything. So if that does translate, and I'm saying that about an Australian international, but obviously as he gets older, if he can handle the speed of it in terms of just is he fast enough to not get stopped against top Super League props, obviously centres I'm talking, obviously against the Wiggins, the KRs and that top level, which they hope to be. He's going to be some player to watch. He's going to be some player to watch if that does translate.
And I think Halifax, similar to York, will be a bit frustrated that they've not got a try and points on the board. And what was interesting about that game, and I only watched the first half live, jokes, I had to hot-foot it to Bellevue for Wakefield versus Goole. But the first 10 minutes, Catalans didn't complete a set.
Yeah.
They were I think they were a little bit guilty of overplaying and taking, again, the Halifax line speed out of defence. It was that real championship mongrel, council estate mongrel, if that makes sense, which Super League sides, if they're caught in the headlights of that, they find it hard to get out of. But, 0-0 at half-time, I was kind of thinking like you, Joe, it was a case of Wayne and, as you saw in the second half late on, and that's credit to Halifax, 70 minutes, that game was in doubt. No one knew which way it was going. But ultimately, that part-time, full-time, that fitness, Halifax had cramp, fatigue, and that's ultimately where Catalans got them. But, for Kyle Eastman and Halifax, wow.
Two young show-me players, got to give him a shout-out. Two young show-me he's not that young anymore, but obviously Dougie, as we mentioned, was
amazing. Man of the match for mine. Brandon Douglas, man of the match.
Joe Hurd, come on. I don't think he replaced Dougie, I think, but Joe Hurd, come on, held his own. Joe Hurd's only 21, 22. For a young prop, held his own against Tavita Pengai Jr. Chris Satai was out to hold his own and not get rolled over, essentially, against two ginormous props in Plume part-time. Is unbelievable.
I know
and I think two show me. I think another shout out to Owen McCarron in the second row. He's just an absolute animal of a workhorse. They were one of them. So some outstanding fun. And just bring it on to Dad's point where he likes to say which players can step up. I think Halifax have 2 or 3 or 4 in that team that probably could, and I think that's what's really exciting about. I think there's generally 2, 3 or 4 players depending on where they can step up and they'd have a go in Super League. I think that's the exciting part.
My big call is going to be this. We are going to move on. I know everybody's waiting for the Bradford Castleford review, but after Danny Maguire
I think it's you rushing this, Mick.
No, I'm not rushing anything. I'm not rushing anything. Listen, as Louis Armstrong...
He's right.
They are waiting. I can see them all on the live. They're all waiting. But just quickly, as Louis Armstrong sang, we have all the time in the world.
Mick, here's an interesting thing. That's why I've looked at the paper.
Sorry, I thought we were boring you.
Well, yeah, no, it was a bit rude now.
I wasn't, because I noticed something which I thought people... Why Halifax, Catalans, 800 fans?
Well, I was going to go on to that.
Well, no, let me finish. And then you've got Goole, obviously, you said got 2,000 plus. But then it's interesting here, which I can't get my head around. I'm sure you lads can know better than me. Whitehaven, 4,000 v Warrington. Workington, 3,000 v Lee. Why Halifax? I know Catalans don't bring any fans, so forget about that. That's the easiest one. Why would that be so bad?
Well, let me just try and explain. What I was trying to build on the end of Halifax's magnificent performance was, if you are a Halifax fan, a Laps fan, please get down to the Share. Go watch him at Sheffield this weekend. Kyle Eastman is building one hell of a side. And, I don't quite have Halifax in the top 6 in the Championship just yet, because it is a very, very weak depth if injuries and suspensions kick in. But that's 17. Wow. But the point I was trying to make, Craig, is that game was Saturday at 12 o'clock because it was on the Sportsman. So I know and I've said this on all the shows that I'm on the radio, I have more friends who are Halifax fans, who are season ticket holders, than Bradford Bulls fans. And none of them went because it was £25. They thought that was too much. It was on 12 o'clock Saturday, so they all stayed at home and watched it. And that must be absolutely galling and heartbreaking for people like Damien Clay and Richard Durgan, because Halifax, I'm led to believe, have lost about 8-9 grand on that game.
Wow.
And to be fair to Damien Clay, and he came out prior to that and said that's what they lost against Fato Heath in the previous round. So they need to hit a certain crowd number to make it viable.
Well,
so
that's shocking.
They've lost.
Playing
They've lost potentially, Craig, 20 grand.
Wow.
In hosting 2 games. And I said this when that draw come out. I was watching it live, and I was like, because how the RFL have seeded it this year, I know there's 12 Super League clubs, but anybody who knows rugby league, with the greatest respect to some Super League clubs, you get next to no away fans. So don't take this as me personally attacking you. You know, I'm saying it as it is. So you knew if you got a Catalans, you knew you were having to work overtime in the marketing department to get your home fans in for it. You know, Salford, credit where it's due, the Midland fans turned out. Spoke to Mark Dunning last night. You know, he reckons that so many new fans have turned out for that Midlands game from the Midlands, which is great. Salford don't travel really, really good. Huddersfield, another one. So there was only really 8, you know, marquee fixtures, golden ticket ties in the Challenge Cup. So Halifax, having Catalans in 2 years in succession, 3 years in the last 5, it's really, really bad luck.
That's not saying enough about it. You look at it proves.
No, I'm going on to it, Craig.
No, I'm saying the good point is the Cumbrians.
Those were Friday night games where they've really marketed them. And Derek's helped Workington out by saying he will let Workington keep all the money. So Workington have used that as their marketing campaign for this fixture by saying, you come here and pay and watch Super League side Lee Leopards, we're keeping all the money.
What about the White?
And that is great.
That's the best.
Again, Sam Burgess sending a relatively strong team up there. Whitehaven rallied behind that. Sam Burgess is coming. England internationals coming. And credit where credit's due. Workington, Whitehaven, they have done an absolutely fantastic, magnificent job. I know Lee took 500-600. I know Workington took about 1,200 up there. You don't get that with Catalans, Huddersfield or Salford, unfortunately.
I think the shocking, if we're talking about attendances, the shocking one for me is obviously what we've known is the Huddersfield Hunslet one. Fairly local, I think there was the 895 or something.
Yeah, just under 900. Yeah.
Under 900 fans Huddersfield have brought over.
But I'm trying to be positive. I want to keep it positive.
And I'm saying it's positive. 2 Cumbrian clubs about attended everybody.
Yeah.
So that is positive. That's
fantastic.
A massive positive.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say. But look, final thoughts on Halifax. Final thoughts on Halifax.
Being positive.
Final thoughts on Halifax Catalan.
You're saying that about me, not you.
I thought it was a real good.
Back off. You're doing that thing you're doing. I don't know what's about with you. You've come in, you're staring, you've got your ankle club. What are you on about? I was saying a good fact there.
No, you what? You took offence to his comment.
I'm not. They've got 8,000 cookies. I didn't. For some reason, they've got 8,000 fans. You mentioned 4 of the clubs. They've got nearly as much as what Bradford had yesterday. It's one of the biggest highlights a week. Proves that there's an appetite for rugby in Cumbria.
It does.
If you were going to spend millions at York and get 4,000, they've got 4,000. That's unbelievable.
We know Cumbria's a hotbed, and again, I'm pleasantly surprised. You know, I knew the crowd at Whitehaven was going to be big because I think they'd sold 1,200 tickets after a day, after 24 hours. So you knew where that was heading. The Warrington fans have gone up there in big numbers, as we say. We suspect from what I spoke to someone at Whitehaven, he reckons there was between 1,200-1,300 Warrington fans there. There was 500-600 Lee fans at Derwent Park on Friday. Unfortunately, I've not seen either of those games. I've seen the highlights, so I can't really comment too much. But you know, by all accounts, Workington and Whitehaven, they've had a real good dig, and they, because Warrington and Lee have allowed them to keep the money, We know Whitehaven are still in special measures. Hopefully, the money that Warrington have donated to them will see them out of special measures. And
been massive.
You know, again, you know, they've got equally, you know, an important part to play in League One in attempting to get back to the Championship with the top four. But yeah, look, Halifax, great performance. Again, I watched the first half live, second half on catch up. Again, you know, that was a very good 7, 8 out of 10. There was the heavy woolen derby as well yesterday, Batley against Dewsbury. I've not seen any highlights. I spoke to someone briefly who was there who just said that Batley really, really good. There was a lot of pressure that Dewsbury put on the Batley defensive line, and Batley just out-defended Dewsbury and kept their line intact, and I think it was 24 points to 6.
What crowd was that?
The crowd there, I think they said there was about 1,500. Which is good. For a heavy woolen derby,
Massive,
you're forgetting it is at not
so
all...
there's no season tickets, this is all...
No, it's all pay crowd. So, you know, Mark Sawyer, although Mark and you know, Dewsbury will come out, that'll be a 12, 14 grand payday for Dewsbury. You know, and same with Kevin and
And they've
Batley.
got the next round if you win it.
Yes, yeah. So Batley are obviously through. I tell you what, we've waited a long time enough. There's still some games to talk about, like Sheffield, Wigan, Westall and Saints on the field. But yeah, let's go back. Let's go to Odsall tomorrow. Let's go to Odsall yesterday. I'm going to say this: when you're DJing and you're getting in, I said to Sam in the car coming here, when you're getting in at 5 o'clock Sunday morning and then you're having 3-4 hours sleep and then you're up for these early kickoffs, and then foolishly, because the adrenaline and everything that happened after that game, when you're commentating and you're broadcasting and you're doing the interviews, it does take a lot out of you and you can't switch off. And then obviously it was Kansas Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm a massive NFL fan, so I religiously watched the Super Bowl. So yeah, lo and behold, that's why I was messaging you at 5 this morning with what the Cass fans were saying on the Cass forum. But look, we are going to go to what happened at Odsall yesterday. And oh boy, you know, the acid test for Bradford, I think that bar, that expectations, I think that's just been raised even more so after Bradford have become the only Championship team in round 3 to beat a Super League opponent. So in terms of, you know, the RFL, when they look at these record crowds that clubs have had, they can actually probably smile this morning at Etihad campus where the RFL's based now, and think, well, you know, we've actually got a Championship side that has beaten a Super League side. But look, Odsall Stadium, that was massive. That was massive. The home field advantage, you know, the big, large, passionate crowd, the weather. Me and John Bastian, we did the commentary, and an hour before kick-off, it was absolutely teeming down. And me and John were just looking at each other. You know, this is going to favour Bradford. The you know, the big forwards, you know, getting over that advantage line, generating that momentum. Obviously, we got the team news. You know, Alex Miller obviously going to be out for a couple of weeks. I think it's a hamstring. Alex Miller. When you do your research, you know, for calling games, I've got all my sheets here. So maybe one day we'll do a show and I'll tell you about the life of being a broadcast journalist. But I didn't really realise just how much of an impact Alex Miller has on Castleford in terms of the meters that he makes and the offload game. To say Reece Martin got in the Dream Team last year, I was actually looking and comparing, because if you go on the website, you can actually put players up against each other. Alex Miller was...
Stats are unbelievable. Yeah.
Alex Miller's stats were head and shoulders above of Reece Martin's. So maybe, you know, because he's played in a beaten team a lot last year, I think maybe... But look, let's get onto the game. Look, we all know what Danny Maguire said post-match about disrespecting Bradford, disrespecting themselves, disrespecting him, and disrespecting the Challenge Cup. And I think you probably saw that in that first half. But as I've tried to say on this show when we've covered the Championship, when you have Bradford and you've got your big players, your Eben Skurs, your Michael Lawrences, your Zach Fultons, your James Donaldsons, what you see time and time again now with Odsall, and yes, it is 21% smaller than Weldon Road. You know, there's no hiding behind that. But when you're going to Odsall, you know what type of game it is. You know that you're going to have that physical overbearance. You're going to have that physical domination of a very big Bradford side that Brian Noble, Lee Greenwood, Eamon O'Carroll have put together. And what you saw was Castleford not able at any point in that first half to stop that momentum. And John Bastian was saying, sometimes you've got to roll your sleeves up and you've just got to dig yourself out of a hole, construct the ladder. And there was none of that from Castleford. And whilst I'm going to pay massive credit to Bradford in that first half, one error in 40 minutes, and that come late on in the first half when I think Joe Keys threw a pass to Ronan Michael and it went forward. Bradford completed in that first half at 94%. So take nothing away from what I'm trying to say is Bradford playing like that against the Leeds, against the Wigan, against the St Helens, it would be difficult for them when you're competing and completing at 94%. But what we saw and what was evident after around 10 minutes in, after the early James Donaldson try, was Castleford making 20, 30 metres from Keys, Meadows kicks, lack of penetration, lack of go forward. Bradford, when they were receiving Darjanasi or Texoy's kicks on their own try line, inside their own 20, they were making 40, 50, sometimes 60 metres, utilising the big powerful edges of Tafua, of Ockenbaugh, of Blake, of Goole. And, that first half, quite surreal for me. 17 points to nil. Yes, there was a little bit of luck with Tom Holmes and that try in, as I said in the call. That ultimately won Bradford the game, in my opinion. I know we'll talk about Texoy and whether or not he should have kicked the conversion, because Danny said post-match he was injured. He shouldn't have kicked the goal. But, credit to Texoy, he's put his hand up. But, Castleford had not been in Bradford's 20-metre line the whole game, and it was right at the end of that first half where they'd got in that 20-metre line, and with 20 seconds to go, Dejanasi kicks that ball, and if Sam Wood or Josh Sim puts their hand down and grounds it, it's all game on. But, imagine how much of a psychological blow that should have been, because as we know in the second half, Bradford came up with 6 penalties, 6 errors. That is one of the most lacklustre Bradford performances I've seen in many a year in that second half. And that is why when I left that game yesterday, yes, there's the elation of Bradford securing a famous cup shot, but at the same time, there's a hell of a lot of work and improvement still to be done in Bradford, because it was those errors, it was those penalties that allowed Castleford back into the game. And credit to Castleford, Danny said he wanted something to work with in the second half. Whether or not Danny genuinely thought the game was gone at half-time or not, it was a grandstand finale. It all come down to Texoy's misconversion. But, you watch that sort of last 5 minutes and you start seeing players drop off, miss tackles. Look how Texoy goes past Kieran Gill and Jordan Lilly. They were tackling like Yorkshire Terriers for 70 minutes. But because of that part-time versus full-time, I said in the call, I know a lot of people would have been watching the BBC coverage, but those people that joined us on the radio yesterday, I said if this goes to golden point extra time, Castleford are going to win, because Bradford, you could see how much effort they had put into it in terms of, the tackling, the forward running, ticking all those effort areas. But yeah, both coaches, Brian, Danny, said Bradford deserved it. I genuinely feel that first half performance probably ticks that box. And it was a great cup tie. It weren't classic, you didn't see much fast-flowing rugby league football because of the conditions and the pitch, but, what a great sort of throwback type of game. But yes, we can talk more later on about some of the problems facing Castleford, but, I stand by what I've said. When I saw Castleford against Wakefield, I think the edges, the defence, there's a load of issues there. There's no size, and they're missing 2 or 3 forwards.
I'm trying to go back to your first analogy with the 1 million at Catalans, the 300 grand at Halifax on the pitch. What do you think were on the pitch yesterday?
I don't know what Castleford currently are. I have an idea.
What were on the pitch?
I have an idea that, I know that Castleford have not really invested on the playing front, if I'm being brutally honest. And I've put this out on Twitter. I look at Castleford now in 25, and I spoke to a couple of Castleford players yesterday, and to be fair, some of them did agree, albeit not as strongly as I've said it. I look at Castleford in 25 and I think this is Wakefield in 23. Because they've had all the investment on big screens and putting the new seating in, there's not been that investment on the team.
Bradford spent yesterday?
Bradford yesterday, Craig, full strength side, minus Guy Armitage. You're probably looking at 600.
A bit more than that.
No.
Bit more than that. Definitely more than that.
600.
If you're saying what's on the
Definitely
pitch,
more than that.
600.
700 or 800 on there, Mick.
I'm saying, look, we're not getting into an argument over what Andy's telling you. You tell me what Castleford was.
Let me tell you, it does need debate because we've made a big thing about the Catalans one. I think the Castleford would have been maybe $1 million, maybe 950. So when people are saying it's a shock result, the cap doesn't tell you it was a shock result because you were at home. This is how I saw it anyway. You did some Texas last night. I didn't see anybody who was shocked about like yesterday's results unless you obviously heard.
Well, look, I'm doing this for the show. You know my thoughts, Craig.
I get you.
This was not a shock.
Right. And that was everybody knew this was going to be one of Danny's hardest games. A young coach going into the game, going to Bradford away in the Challenge Cup, in them conditions, with the pitch that size, with not too much. You've got a team that has spent quite a lot on the cap for the championship against a team that probably didn't, especially when Mellor out, would be a big earner, Rowan Mills out, whatever. So that would have evened it up, yeah?
But go on, sorry.
So you looked at the game, at one stage did I think it would be comfortable for Cass, ever. I thought that Cass would have kicked you to death in first half, kicked early, turned you, kick chase, won it second half. That was me. I thought last 20 they'd get you. I text that to Danny and Danny Wilson, said I think that last 20, historically, the legs of Castle get him. It nearly did.
And you saw a little bit of that, yeah.
And it nearly did. Where I think Danny, and this is, I hope he takes it, he'd have learned more this year and certainly that game than he ever will in his life. Danny comes from a background of being a superstar rugby player. I think the only twice I've ever seen him critiqued in his life were once when Phil Clark critiqued him over something happened at Wigan, and the other one when he didn't get critiqued, but he had 2 ACLs and some bad injuries. Danny's first time in his life yesterday, probably driving on with loads of tweets, loads of things, and people are going, oh my God. He goes to the shop and people are putting their heads down. Some Cass fans are everywhere. He has to take his young to rugby. This is new ground for what's happening. Danny Wilson's probably in the same boat. He's a new director of football stroke CEO. Martin's a new owner. So for them, that fixture is a living fucking nightmare. And they got what I think a lot of people in rugby league who like rugby league, it was going to be a 50-50 shot. Jimmy said it was -6. I didn't see it as -6. Where I was impressed with Bradford is, they were, like you said, they executed fantastic first half.
Very clinical.
I loved everything they did. I don't think they played the conditions great, Cass. I thought Cass in first half, you said 6 mistakes. Bradford second half, I think Cass made about 9 at first. They didn't seem to be able to hold the ball.
100%. When I had the stats at half time, Bradford had made 1, Castleford had made 8. And Bradford were leading the penalty count 5-1.
And they couldn't get out. You're right, the kicking were that good. Listen, your 2 halfbacks dominated the 2 Cass halfbacks. And for me, that was the biggest thing I saw, that them 2 totally dominated the 2 Cass halfbacks. That were a key fixture because they know how to play them conditions. They know where to kick. They know where to finish. I have no idea where the Cass ending of the sets were going. Tex did look to me like he wanted to kick anyway, so he got 1 kick in first half or none. The other lad and he wasn't even putting the torpedo on. And he wanted a box kick because he wasn't near enough to put a box kick. It was just a kick. What you're saying, they come back and they were starting at 30, 40. They were bad field position kicking. I think Danny did a great job at half time. I think how we nearly got a result out of that, I'll never know, because I'll be honest with you, watching live, I'm thinking it's 40. I'm thinking, oh my God, this could be a score. They've gone in, and I take massive positives. Whatever happened in that room, I hope they all sprayed each other. I know one thing for sure: Joe Westerman got on ball more in second half, and that's when things started to happen. He was playing like an halfback.
Well, it was. Westerman in the second half ended up with Dejanassi in the halves.
Yeah, and I don't like him at half because he tried that at Wakefield. He gets isolated out there, so he's no chance defensively. But he got his hand on first receiver and started to play, and the back row was starting to punch holes through you. The Papua New Guinea back row was starting to get to that edge. Listen,
Jeremiah Simbakin, yeah.
They were a kick away from drawing game.
Unbelievable.
Would I take it that disappointed? Not a chance. Not a chance did I sit in that room afterwards. I said to Joe on the text, Great game, absolutely loved it. Should be what the Challenge Cup. Right result. Daniel learned loads. Cass fans know where they are now. So the pressure has to come on Cass to make some changes pretty quick, I'd say. We said on last week's show that they'd wait to make them calls. Well, the time's now. This is Danny Wilson and Martin have got to get together and they've got to say, listen, I'm sorry. And there's going to... Do you know what? Imagine being a young coach after Challenge Cup, and you've got 4-day turnaround for Hull KR. 5 days, sorry. So they're at Hull KR on Friday.
Yeah, Hull KR.
Which Danny said, didn't he? So you get today off, you start your prep tomorrow, you've got 2 days to get ready for one of the biggest games of his life. It's going to be a tough month for Cass. And we're all going to be honest with that. It is going to be the toughest month. Bradford have definitely done them no favours, but I look at bottom 5 clubs in Super League drawing Bradford at Odsal. Nobody fancies it. I'm even looking at top 3-4 clubs saying, what is the one draw we don't want? I'm telling you now, if they all were honest, they all say going to Odsal on that pitch in them conditions with that crowd is your worst nightmare. So I think, give respect to Bradford at home in a lovely February weather. If this is not June, this is February weather. I don't think no one fancies going. I said to my PR in Sheffield, he goes, we're on the way home, kid. But as if to say, we've got the job done, we're on the way home. I think Bradford put a sword through most people. You told me he did the same to Huddersfield, and I thought Huddersfield had nobody out. It was, no, they had a lot of first teamers. So they've already beat 2 Super League clubs in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, the Huddersfield team that Bradford faced, it had Matty English, it had Oliver Wilson, it had Sam Alsall, it had Sutcliffe, it had Swift. It was pretty much a 70-75%
So that could have been the
team.
same cap value as Cass in because of their cap value will be higher.
Yeah.
So you put 2 to sword.
This is what I'm saying. That performance yesterday, even though there is a lot of room for improvement, and I don't want this to come across as being negative, but, yes, there's the elation and everyone going crazy when Texoy has the Don Fox moment at the side of the post. But, there's a lot of room for improvement. And what was really refreshing from me was players, that self-appraisal. You like to hear it. I did a great interview with Kieran Gill, Castleford born, Castleford bred, grew up on the terraces at Weldon Road. He's, getting very emotional in that he got let go by Cass.
And Tom Holmes did. They both
released, and he never thought he'd get an opportunity. They're both late 20s now, coming towards, not the end. I think Kieran Gill and Tom Holmes probably can do another 5-6 years, but they never thought they'd get that opportunity to play a club that means so much to them. They've both been on the terraces at Weldon Road, but even like Kieran Gill's saying, that ticks it now. Nothing will be. Bradford could go on and win the Challenge Cup or the 1895. Beating Castleford meant so much to him, but in terms of his appraisal,
you after yesterday, do you not think that Jimmy argued with me this morning about this? I think you were good favourites to win it. This is what I don't get. I'm trying to work out why on the WhatsApps and the texts.
Bradford are favourites. The bookies are Bradford favourites at the Championship.
No, what I'm saying is they haven't done
nothing. Not of the game. He's saying of the game.
I'm saying Bradford look to me the real deal in every area. And I think if you go pre-season and Bradford had dropped a couple, I'd have gone, Featherstone have got some good results. York have got... They beat 2 Super League sides. I think they're even more favourites than they were. That's what I'm trying to say. I think Bradford go into this first weeks of season got to be a better odds than they started because they've put 2 to sword and they've got a massive squad. They've got Brian Noble, who, whether you like Brian or not, is one of the most successful coaches in the history of the sport. So I don't think you've got any negatives at all in your team. I think Bradford deserve all the credit. I think it's massive.
The challenge that Brian's got, and the biggest challenge facing Bradford is this, and I think Brian gets a little bit, like Wayne Bennett, it can deflect, and if there's something that's close to the ball.
He's thinking.
I've asked Brian a few times now in interviews, and I'm focusing on how you're keeping everybody happy. You've got a big squad, a lot of quality, a lot of depth. You look at the players that missed yesterday. I don't know what Guy Armitage is on, but I suspect he's on 30, 35 grand. You're looking at people like Emmanuel Wayne, who were playing in the Super League regularly last year. Sam Hallis, a great club player who, offers a lot in terms of his effort, his enthusiasm. You've got a lot of players who simply aren't getting in. And yes, there was a little bit of an injury concern.
Won't play, will he?
Well, he come off the bench. He's having to play 9, but obviously with Joe Keys going off, and I'm led to believe it's not serious. It was a minor back issue. He felt it go when he took the conversion for the Donaldson try, which he missed, but he stayed out there on the field, and at half-time he was taken off as a precaution. I'm led to believe he should be okay. He might miss London this week as an extra precaution, but he'll be certainly back for Hunslet, for Toulouse, that 1895 Cup game against Batley. But the challenge that Brian's got is, how do you keep everybody happy? Because there's a lot of big name players there who aren't going to be playing.
It's easy. You just keep winning. Can't moan when you win.
And put the side before yourself mentality, and obviously realise...
Yes, you win. If you don't play for a team and they win and they beat Huddersfield and Bradford and Cass, and you're a sub and you come up to Brian Noble and say, how come I'm not playing? I reckon Nobby says, fuck off. How can anybody in the world say to you, I should be playing?
No, but I'm just saying, Craig, it's a long season. We know injuries and suspensions will bite at every club. Players will get that opportunity. But at the start of the season, you can understand that. But, like I say, certainly similar to Halifax, I'm picking up all those Bradford players, especially your Franklin Pellers, your Jaden Hockenbows, your Wonga Blakes, Emmanuel Wayneys, all the Australians, Kiwis, they're really, really, Mitch Suter, they're all really close-knit, and that's something that Brian Noble can harness. And like I say, Castleford, we're going to go, we're doing a Super League preview and Championship preview, so we'll talk more about where Castleford and Bradford are. But, I thought that was, in terms of the game, Craig, it weren't a classic in terms of quality, but in terms of nerve-shredding drama, when Tex Hoy, with 60 seconds to go, cut that lovely inside-angled run, and he went past Gill, and he went past Lilly, and Tom Holmes was ever so slightly just too far away. And credit to Ronan Michael, I think it was Ronan Michael or Eben Skur who actually... Ronan chased him back,
but I think he could have gone 5 more meters.
Yeah.
And he had young Rooney there, and if he got the guts, I'd have just pinged it to Rooney and said, put it down there.
Yeah, and, it was only like when we spoke to Danny after the game, Craig, and he's like, Tex was injured after that, scoring that try. He shouldn't have really kicked the goal.
I heard Danny say that. I think Tex scored the try, he's on a high. How would you not want to take the conversion to go into extra time? Listen, I've said this, and Joe said it, Jimmy said it, we've said it from the start. Cass, their plus yesterday, if you're Danny Maguire, you've got a young 19-year-old, 18-and-a-half-year-old fullback.
I was impressed with Fletcher Rooney.
Fletcher Rooney will be one of the key ingredients that keep Cass, as fans, believing this year. Because that's certainly one of his conditions, let me tell you. He's a real 10 GPSer. He's lightweight, in that mud. What I don't think no one appreciates for a young kid to do that in them conditions against the men and the size of Bradford. And he took about 6 high bombs and he never dropped one, and he had to come back and return it. And at times, and I'm going to challenge a couple of Cass players, he was having to carry off his own line, which for me is horrendous. I'd have been protecting that babby and saying, no chance I'm having in. Yeah. He didn't, he kept going in, kept going in. And I'm watching it, I thought Moise was superb. That second half, Muzzy was we're talking, somebody put on I think you sent it through, Mick. These are the players that need to get out to Cass. I thought whoever said that's an absolute fucking Derek, because I don't mean that as in Derek, but you put Moise. They put Moise on that list, and I thought, well, what are they watching? Do they understand? Does any Cass fans understand Moneyball? Does anybody know what that kid's on?
Those messages were from the Castleford forward, which is in meltdown.
Did you watch that? Did you think Moise played well?
No, awesome, I thought.
Did you think he played well?
Look, out of all the Castleford players, I think there was 2 or 3 at most who can actually say they gave their all, and Fletcher Rooney was one, and certainly Muzzy's Mustafa was
the other. So I'm sure you've got to take negatives and positives. I think,
and I thought Dejan Arce did the best.
The back rower,
yeah. No, Ozzy's the half.
The half. I thought he tried his best.
I'd probably question that one.
But what I thought was interesting.
I thought you saw glimpses of the centre that they've been absolutely slaughtering. At least he had more of a dig than he did at Wakey.
Zach Zini, yeah.
Zach Zini actually got his feet through 3 or 4 times. I know Danny made a big thing of the back rower from Batley, thought he had a right gig.
Hodgson,
Danny made a thing on your interview was saying.
Yeah, Josh Hodgson obviously coming for Mellor, and I thought Josh Hodgson certainly did well. So
yeah. Danny's going to take that out. I think this is not being thing. This is honest. You've got, sometimes in life, Mick, you have to make calls on whether people are good enough. And I think what Danny's going to learn... Did you know, if I were Danny this morning, I swear, I've said this to Danny Bruff, he's rang me this morning, I said, I would be buzzing. And this sounds horrendous, but I did it in my life. When you're at your lowest ebb, Mick, you should be at your highest, because if Danny Maguire can learn more here, and I'd be writing down everybody who's negative towards me, I'd be writing down for motivation. I'd also be working and saying to me, I can get us out of this. And if he does, if he goes on to be an international coach, right, I promise you and Joe, in 20 years' time, he'll say that year at Castleford was the only year that'll be the one he remembers. All the top coaches remember Ferguson, when he got to Man United 2.5 years, they wanted to. He will learn more about himself, about Brett Delaney, about Scott Morrell. He'll learn more about Danny Wilson. He'll learn more about Martin, the chairman. He'll learn more about the cast fans, and more importantly, he'll learn more about the players. My advice to Danny as a friend is, if you know already that they are not the ones, you're not here to make friends, unfortunately. You are not here to be making friends. You're here to build a team the best you can be. He's you know, when I said, and I don't know if Joe and Jimmy looked at me funny last week, I said, and we had to edit it out, and I probably explained myself. In experience, it was a mismatch in young Danny Maguire, young Brett Delaney, and Scott Morrell taking on 4-time grand final winning Great Britain coach in his own back garden, with all them lovely conditions and team he had. That was, do you know, you said something earlier on, Tom Holmes and Kieran Gill. I don't think one player at Cass thought, oh, look at Kieran Gill and thinking they've got something to play because they want to beat Cass. But I think them lads have been thinking about it since the fixture.
110%.
And that, how do you say that to overseas players? Do you know what this means? Do you know when Danny questioned what it meant to you before? I don't know what you think, Joe. Do you think Danny Maguire, what did he use as incentive in this preview? So you've got overseas players who hardly speak any English. You're looking up this 7-in team. You've got your own grown. You've got Joe Westerman, who probably will know what it means. How many of them players do you think could have known what that fixture meant? That how big a club Bradford were, what they will be doing to win this game?
Well, it's hard, but I think a lot of them should have. There's not that many Aussies, and the Papua New Guinean. I'm different from you there. I think the Papua New Guineans come from a culture where every game's like that. If you watch them Papua New Guinean games from back home, they're crazy. 10 times that atmosphere of Vauxhall, didn't they? They are not. You've got. I think the only ones that probably don't is Tex, Aussie, which is spine. So that is important. The rest of them would have, and I think there was some. That would be my concern. Is that first 30 minutes, like Mick said, they got it. The rest of it wasn't that thing for me. The yardage difference that really scared me. Like you said, they were letting. It hurt me. I'm really close with Fletch. Love him as a lad. Great person. Heart of gold. What a man. But letting Fletch weighs about 83, 84, 85 on a good day. If he's had some 85 kg at his best day, he should be nowhere near taking it. He took 2 carries a set in some of the sets. He'd take the thing, run it in, then he'd line. He shouldn't have been anywhere near that, and it's not. It shouldn't have been Fletcher's responsibility to even attempt that. So I think there were some worrying bits there where they should know that. I think that some of them shouldn't. The Papua New Guineans in the first probably 10-15 minutes probably had to learn quick, but I don't know. I think that's the bit that concerned me, that I probably disagree with that. I think they should know, other than Tex and Arzi, which it is a completely, that's seeding, chucking the 3 there.
But is it hard as a coach? You know, if you're sat there, Danny's got Scott Morrell, who'll know what it means. He's got Frogger, and he's got himself, who is one of the greatest to play it. Danny sits there. But it's hard though sometimes to say, give your opposition respect, but also dare he say, we should be burying these today. Do you think that come out of his mouth? I probably don't think it did.
I spoke to Danny at the Super League launch to
you get me? We should beat these today. We're better than these in every area.
No, I don't get your point.
I think
so. If you've been in change rooms and your team and your manager comes in and he'll say, so let's say we're playing this week first game and you've got OKR and Cass. I'm sure Willie said, if everything's even, we win this game by 26 points today, guys. I don't know if Danny was in any position pre-game to say, if we get this right here, we'll put 20 points on Bradford.
I think he should have, yeah.
Right.
No,
Interesting.
I didn't pick that up from Danny at all.
Interesting.
No, I'm not saying he did. I think they should have been more positive. I think the second half showed they did have more money on the pitch. I'm not trying to be too negative, but I think they did have more money on the pitch, so they should.
Arguably, they had more money on the pitch.
They'd have a lot more money on the pitch. They'd have they have not experience to say, but Westy. There's a few big players there that Westy quiet that first half, then become a player the second and got them there. But there were a couple of them where I don't know. I think they should have gone into. I text you saying Castle win this by 10, 12 here. It'd be close, but I think they'll win it in the second half. Not you. I messaged the group chat that we're in. I was fairly confident with the lineup, other than Mellor, which is a massive loss. As Mick
Rowan's massive.
But they've had a preparation for that. To be fair to sadly, Mellor had to drop out 2 days before, didn't he, or a day before.
I've been
so I don't know. I think they have to make. There was some good signs there. Tex did what Tex does, has his in and out moments, but then has one moment of magic that he does every game. He always has the one clear line that nearly got him the win.
I think. Do you not think it's the squad depth though? You look at it. You just said there about the halves. He played Westwood, Joe at half back against Wakefield. Then he changed it this week because he said he had to put Tex there and then put Rooney because he felt that was the stronger way of doing it. I think Cas fans will be petrified at that, thinking that's what they've got to do. Put Tex, who's hardly ever played half there, certainly not a good defender at half, and he doesn't take line on enough. And then you've got having to put a young lad in that conditions in your team. This is before a ball's kicked. That's probably
But that's my point. I think that's the bit where the fans have. I think the sad reality is, which he might have said, Mick, you'll tell me in a minute, but if they've generally got no more money to spend and that's it, yes, Cass will have a really sad long year. If they do have something, they need to find a bit of money or an angle or a move or something to get some more depth in them. They've got 3 hookers, probably need. I'd say maybe don't need 3 hookers. They probably need to get a backup half if they've got young Jensen there that's fighting, but they probably need someone of age that's going to push and then full back, like you said. If Tex has the moments, I've not seen Tex put a full 80-minute game together yet, but he has one great moment a game. Which, if you want to go with that. There's a few things I think they've got. Danny's got some big questions, hasn't he?
Yeah, and
there's definitely players
there.
there.
Pre-game.
Let's look. I've got loads to say on where I think Castleford are, but let's save that for the Super League preview. What did I feel pre-game? Do you want my honest?
Yeah, give it.
If you speak to John Baston, he'll confirm this. I obviously
watching him warm up and watching.
Yeah. I looked. I analysed everything. I realised about Mellor and what he brings to the team and the meters. I realised that Danny had changed the spine for the 3rd game in a row. And with the greatest respect to 19-year-old Fletcher Rooney, he only made 4 appearances last year. And those 4... I'd love to speak to Fletcher Rooney about his experiences in those 4 Super League games last year versus what he faced yesterday, because I don't think he would have realised what was coming. But you can speak to John Bastian about this.
Fletcher, I think
pre-match. They played at Edinburgh, didn't you? That was a massive game.
I said pre-match, Craig. Seriously, I said I think Bradford win by 16, and it's 17-0 at half time. And even John Bastian saying you've called it, Gled. But what I didn't predict on happening was Bradford being so lethargic. And don't take this the wrong way, Bradford fans. I'm not throwing the team under the bus. I'm going off what I saw.
That was
I saw
a major
the penalties.
positive for Castle.
I saw the errors, and that allowed Castleford back into the game. But look, that last 15 minutes when Michael Lawrence, James Donaldson come back on, that experience, that leadership, that turned that pendulum back in the way of Bradford.
I get you. Believe it now. I'm trying to think of this last night. Sam Wood catches the ball and misses it. Am I right? You both know what I'm on about. When Sam Wood got the ball, he's on the line and for some reason.
Yeah, but to be fair, he did.
Yeah,
that wasn't an easy catch.
The back rower has a walking, and the halfback hits him half a yard behind. The big back rower's literally got the Aussie halfback missed him. It's like a walking. I thought there were 3 or 4 times, even in that second half, where Cass could have still won the game and come away with a good victory. I thought that Cass bombed more tries than Bradford did. I think if you detailed it, they bombed 3. And I'm on about clear cuts.
Sam Wood wasn't clear cut. That was
what?
Sam Wood wasn't clear cut. He's had to pick it off from.
No, they did the hard bit, and then he.
Yeah, because it was all in one motion. It was all in one motion. That's a tough thing to do.
I would agree, over the 80 minutes, Castleford had more try-scoring opportunities. But do not take anything away. Look at Tom Holmes' try-saving tackle on that last tackle when you think Castleford are in at the corner. You know, that never say die attitude. And, you know, there will be a little bit in that sort of lacklustre second half with Joe King's
what a
going
great
off.
tackle, but then you've got Sims. There's no winger in the world who gets stopped off Tom from there, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And just one final point on that game. I actually did write this down because when you speak to Brian and you look at what he's achieved, you know, over 700 games as a player and a coach, you know, he is a rare breed. He took Great Britain to the Sydney Football Stadium in 2006. And we all remember Fielden and Mason and that famous Great Britain win against Australia. But I know from speaking to Bradford players, Brian has used all that value, all that intelligence, all that knowledge, all that experience in some of that, they call it the underdog mentality. Brian's been very, very good at kind of creating this, we're the underdog here. You know, everyone's saying Castleford are going to win. This is our own patch. You know where I'm going. He's been very, very good at that as Brian. You know, like I say, part-time against full-time, I wrote that down about the fitness, faster, that sort of mental concentration when things are going tough. But, you know, Brian got his team to invest that energy, that effort in that defence. And I've got to say, that bar is even higher now. And there'll be a lot of Bradford fans, and I know there's a lot of Bradford fans from the messages that I get from Bradford fans. You know, they're looking forward to hosting London.
You're spied, Mick. I tell you, Tom Holmes, give him every bit of due.
After what he had at the start of last year with the cancer scare.
100%. You're 100%, but your spine, you're 6'7", if they're fit. You're 6, 7, 9 and 1 behind that pack. I'm telling you, you're in for it. If you're in for your year of your life. I think you're in for a year of your life. I think unless you get a big problem, everything what I saw yesterday, the young Batley London half,
James Meadows,
absolutely tailor-made for you. It's absolutely tailor-made. He's got a running game. He's got a grubber on that lovely pitch.
That kicking game.
Yeah. He's got it. You're looking on. If Keys is on, he's got the best tactical and the best. You know, when they took the 1-pointer, I didn't even see it.
Smart.
See it.
I was calling for it. Yeah.
Who's the famous? Brian Noble's the world's famous.
There was smartness. There was intelligence to that play, even though Bradford probably didn't need to, because John Bastian was saying.
When your hooker put a shot on Sam Wood, I thought he killed him. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
He looks the real. So for me, again, I think you're in for an absolute brilliant year, and I think if I were the other clubs. If you want to know if Bradford are the real deal, it's all over now. It's exposed. They are the real deal, and it's up to them. Here's one interesting for you before we finish. And when you look at this, and thank you for bringing this in. If you were Bradford, first of all, who do you want to get? You obviously want an home tie. Do you want somebody you think you can beat, or do you want the big guns? Let me finish. Do you want the big guns? Do you want Wigan for the crowd? Do you want Leeds Rhinos for the crowd? Or do you want Batley and you can beat them and get through to the next one?
I always do this show as a neutral, but if you're asking me with my loyalties to Bradford...
With your shirts on.
Listen, I've had a long night. I haven't been... Elgrin. No, I'm joking. Look, Craig, I asked Brian Noble this question and I agree with Brian Noble's answer. He wants Leeds Rhinos at Headingley, face the best of the best, bring back Leeds, Bradford... 15,000 there. What a game that would be.
And last question, Joe. Have we got a fixture in there?
It's got to be Leeds. Bradford Leeds. It's got to be. That'd be the tie in the fourth round if that comes out on Saturday night.
No more?
No, I think the only other quick mention, obviously, we dropped him in the preview, the Hunslet v Huddersfield game. Hunslet started off 6-0 up.
Were you there, Joe?
Went ahead. No, I wasn't there. I was watching. It was at similar time, wasn't it? An hour or two later. But watching, they went 6-0 up. Following it on Twitter, the luck thing. I've spoke to Dean this morning. He thought they bombed 2 tries. They thought they could have gone into it with a bit closer. Said obviously probably still lost in the end, but said there 1 or 2 mistakes in there, and they could have had a good one. So yeah, I think all credit Hunslet. They're still in the market for one or two. So I think that's exciting that they're not going to be. This is no disrespect to Hunslet, but they're not going to be they're not going to be one of them teams that comes up, comes down. They're going to have a fight every week. And then Huddersfield's the other one, innit? Like I said, they bought 800 fans, and then they've scraped. They've had a tough start against the Hunslet side that not dead. Hunslet aren't Bradford. They're not. Bradford are, whatever they're spending a decent amount for champ. Hunslet aren't spending a decent amount, so it's. I'd say I think the good debate you could have in the Super League one is if you're going into the season now as a Cass or a or a Huddersfield fan. Who's more worried out of that two fan bases? I think that's a debate.
We'll save that one for the
next show.
Yeah, we are doing a Super League preview. I know this is going out on Monday, Monday the 10th. But yes, I was just going to say, obviously, I know it's very difficult to get opinions on, obviously, like North Wales Crusaders and Widnes and some of the other games that we've not really been able to shine the spotlight on. But I was really interested in that in that North Wales Crusaders Widnes game because I know Alan Coleman's got strong goals and wants Widnes to do really well on the back of reaching the playoffs for the first time since their relegation in 2018. But that was an interesting scoreline. A lot's been kind of said about North Wales Crusaders and Mr. Bitcoin, who had the club and then he sold it on. Players like Lloyd Roby, for instance, a former Widnes man. I'm really interested to see how North Wales Crusaders
Carl
go.
Foster's, to be fair to him, every time.
Yeah.
I don't speak to him often, but every time
that
I
looks
do, it's
a real
lovely,
good, solid
he's a great
effort.
person, a good coach, by all regards.
And I know there's no crowd given for that game, Craig.
You've got it this week because they're playing Goole, so that, if you get yourself down, you'll be able to see whether they are.
Well, I can't because it's Bradford, London, but I know there's no crowd given in the League Express, but I spoke to one of my good friends, Andy Morsdale, at North Wales Crusaders, and he said, sorry, I should have mentioned this as well, there was just under 1,500 fans there, and that is an attendance record at their new stadium in Colwyn Bay, which I've done a couple of commentaries from. It's called the Stadium Win in Colwyn Bay. It's right at the top on the cliffs, and when you're on that gantry in that main stand, it's amazing. You've got real Prestatyn to your right. You can see Chester and Birkenhead, and then to the left you've got the Little Orme, the Big Orme, the Great Orme. Honestly. That is a very good away day, and great news that the Widnes fans had gone there. And just finally, Craig, I know you mentioned it at the start about Midland Hurricanes against Salford. Obviously, 10 points apiece at half time. Wow! What a great effort that is from Mark Dunning in the Midlands. And I know you've said second half. You've spoken to Callum. They've got the combination.
Spoke to Dunning this morning. He thought they could have gone up 16. I think they bombed a try or something. They dropped a ball as it crossed the line. There was something, I can't remember exactly what he said. I'll have to watch the highlights. But they bombed a try that they said in the next set, is it Salford or did they play Salford?
Yeah, they played Salford, yeah.
Salford went and scored in that next set after bombing the try. And he said, well, we could have gone up maybe 16 odd and it could have been close, like you said. So Mark was extremely excited. You could hear the buzz in his voice. He were bouncing. Hey, what's going on? His thing. There's a couple more signings that he's got lined up, and it's all positive in Midlands.
Well, like I say, I think when you look at the third round, we know it is going to change again. I would implore the RFL to keep the Super League clubs coming to the lower league clubs. I think, is it right that they play the community? I think that's open for debate because on one hand you've got Leeds putting 16 tries on West Warriors, but then on the flip side you've got a crowd of over 5,000 at Craven Park for West Hull versus St Helens, and they have kept St Helens and Paul Wellens to 2 tries in that second half. I know it was a very, very young Saint side with your John Bennisons, your George Whitbys, your Harry Robertsons, etc. Yeah, but it was still a sprinkling of experience of St Helens in that, and credit where it's due. I think West Hull are rightly going to get, in my view, what am I saying? West Hull get the if we're going to do a team of the week, I'm giving it to West Hull for that amazing performance and that good crowd. But yes, stay tuned for the Super League, Championship League One previews because we probably will cover a lot, whether or not Cass Huddersfield, who's the most in crisis in the Super League, and who are the runners for the, how can I say it, the Championship. We can't even say it's promotion anymore, the Championship Grand Final, which earns those all-important IMG points. And I've just realised, Craig, there's one game we haven't even touched upon, and that was obviously Featherstone's big win against Ince Rose Bridge. I don't know if you've spoken to Fordy about that. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. It has been the Show Me the Money Rugby League TV Challenge Cup third round review. Don't forget, coming up this week, we have the Super League preview. Myself, Craig, Joe, we are going to lock in our predictions for how the 2025 Super League season is going to go. And we've also got that for the Championship and League One. Until next time, God bless.